All right, welcome to this week's episode of Weirdos Like Me. I am your chief weirdo, Dr. Shannon. Let's talk about public speaking. It's an introvert's worst nightmare, right? Well, what if I told you that it may be your worst nightmare currently because you've been taking advice from a bunch of extroverts about how to speak in front of groups of people? I was always afraid to get up in front of crowds, and I never thought that I could do it until I found myself doing multiple community networking events each week. I was doing multiple health talks for my practice each week, teaching classes online and in person, teaching seminars, doing book tours with events with hundreds of people watching. And guess what? I realized that I was able to do all of that without actually dying like I thought I would, because I stopped listening to advice from people who were the exact opposite of me. And then I figured out what worked for me, which just so happened to be an introvert. So if you are an introvert, you may want to keep listening, or if you just want some different viewpoints, different advice than probably what you've heard for the most part on public speaking, then you're in the right place. So here we go. All right, first, I want to start off with a few things that I was previously told as quote unquote advice for public speaking that, anyway, I'll just say it. I'll let you judge for yourself. So first, I was told to practice your presentation or your talk in front of a room full of people before you do it. All right, let me say, number one, if you're already scared to talk in front of groups of people, how is this even helpful? Like if I could talk in front of the group, I wouldn't need to practice it, right? So there's that. And then number two, sometimes you just don't have access to practice groups of people. Like I don't just have 500 people on standby for me that I can be like, hey guys, all right, I got this big talk coming up. I need you guys to be here at noon so I can practice it in front of you so that I can really feel like what it feels like to talk in front of 500 people. I mean, I don't know, maybe you do. And if you do, that's cool, but that doesn't seem very practical for most people. Second thing I was told, literally told, was, well, just stay calm. Thank you. That's super helpful. With like no strategies on how to stay calm. It's just, just stay calm. It's cool. Cool. Anyway, then I also got told, tackle your fears head on. So I was researching this, okay? And literally this came up on one thing that I looked up, and it said, for example, if you stutter when you're nervous and you're afraid that you're going to stutter during your presentation, account for it and make sure that you control it. Hopefully you're watching and not listening. You're just going to get these like awkward pauses in here because I'm making faces during these awkward pauses. But again, hey, thanks for that advice. That was so helpful. If I could just control it, then I wouldn't do it in the first place and I wouldn't be nervous about it. Like who comes up with this advice, right? So not helpful. Anyway, so this is what I was basing my, public speaking skills off of for years. And I just thought I could never do it. So here are things that I learned over time of what you should actually do, especially if you're an introvert, to help make public speaking not so terrible. Okay, so number one, use humor. All right, make fun of yourself if it helps break the ice. So going back to that example with the stuttering thing, if you know that you stutter when you get nervous, literally tell people up front that you do it. Make a joke about it. It's like addressing the elephant in the room, and all of a sudden it's not so bad anymore once you just tell people that it's going to happen and it's okay. And for example, also, if you blank out in the middle of your presentation, don't try to be super awkward and hide it, because you're probably not going to hide it very well. But just say it out loud. And I've done this before. I'm like, dang guys, I totally forgot what I'm supposed to be saying here. Somebody asked me a question, like, give me something to say right now. And then just laugh about it. It breaks the ice in the room. People think it's funny. And you're just calling yourself out, right? You're saying, I am human. These things happen and it's okay. So use some humor. Then in terms of practicing, here's the next thing. Practice like you're actually doing it. However, don't practice with people that make you nervous. So Some people say you should practice in front of a group of strangers. Other people say you should practice with your friends and your family. I don't care who you practice with, but do not pick the group that makes you nervous. So for me, I get more nervous if I'm talking in front of people that I know. So friends, family, and people that I'm actually comfortable with versus getting me up in front of a room of strangers. I can speak with less awkward nervousness in front of those people versus people that I do know. So what does that mean? That means for me, I don't practice in front of people I know because I'm just going to make myself nervous. And then I'm going to take that same nervous energy into the now situation with people I don't know where I'm not as nervous to begin with. Or, you can do the opposite. Maybe it's a little harder with the opposite. Like if you can't really practice in front of people you don't know necessarily, but this is where videoing yourself might come into play, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But anyway, all that to say, use it if it works, right? Don't practice in front of people you know if it makes you nervous. Now, next up, write out your speech or your presentation. And I mean, actually write it out. So, for introverts, sometimes writing is easier than talking. So I want you to sit down. You can physically write with pen and paper if you want, but sometimes it's easier to just type it out. So sit down, either write or type out your presentation like you're talking it out loud to your friend, right? So get out all the words and put it down. Then you can read through the actual speech several times to start building that memory before you give the speech. So it's kind of like starting with the details, and then you can take that and break it down into bullet points. So take like 1 or 2 words from each paragraph, create a short bullet pointed list so that you have that in front of you to jog your memory about what it is that you're saying. And here's the thing, it's okay to have memory aids in front of you during a talk. I know that sometimes, we've been told you need to have everything memorized from the get-go. Don't make your life harder than it has to be. That's like people saying when I was a kid, make sure you know how to do all this math because you're not going to have a calculator with you at all times. And guess what? Newsflash, we have a calculator with us at all times, and it's okay. I'm not saying math's not important, guys. Okay, calm down, calm down. Not saying that. What I am saying is, I don't know who made up some rule that you're not supposed to have a memory aid in front of you during a speech, but you can, so use it, right? Now, since you have your memory aid and you have your detailed paragraphs written, you then need to practice it, not in terms of what to say, but how to say it. And when I say this, I mean literally write in your pauses, your pitch changes, when you want to walk away from the podium, if there is one. I mean, dang, write down when you want to sneeze in the middle of your presentation if you want, right? Like if that makes sense. It sounds kind of crazy that, I had people tell me, don't write down the details. Just wing it when you get up there. It'll come to you. And guess what makes an introvert in front of large groups of people any more nervous than just being in front of large groups of people in and of itself? Freaking winging it. That's what makes you more nervous. So again, who cares if that might work for other people? Do what works for you. Don't wing it. Write down when you're going to do your pauses, your walking, maybe not your hand gestures if you're watching me, because I just do them all the time. But, write these things in and practice them as you do it. So that way you just start doing it from muscle memory and you're comfortable with it. Next up, I want you to really dig in deep and be honest here. Are you good off the cuff? Meaning, are you good in the spur of the moment if people ask you questions? If you are, then allow time for questions, allow time for interaction from the audience. If you're not, that's okay, but don't allow time for lots of interactions. You can always tell your audience that they can contact you after, give them away, email, social media, whatever it is, to ask you questions later that you can answer. But if you're not good at that in the moment interaction, then don't set yourself up for failure, right? Work to your advantages. But if you are, utilize that, build time in, and let there be interaction during your presentation. Next up, make sure you know your audience and use it to warm up and interact with them. So for example, just know, are they brand new to the topic that you're discussing, or are they well versed in it? Because knowing this okay, here I go, stuttering over my words, right? Knowing this changes how you interact with them. So, it changes how you use certain words, use the vernacular that group uses. So if it's an older crowd, a younger crowd, if it's a professional crowd, or this is just like a non-professional type talk, as hilarious as some slang terms may be to one group, using them with the wrong group may make it awkward. And as an introverted public speaker, you do not want to add to any of the awkwardness there. So just do a little research, know who you're speaking to. It's going to make you feel way more comfortable going into it. And then when you can relate to the audience, they're going to automatically let their guard down as well. And it's just going to be a better experience overall. Now, here is another thing, may or may not work for you as an introvert. So I'm going to say it anyway. And then you can decide for yourself if it works, because sometimes it does. So I don't want to leave it out. You can try video recording yourself, practicing your presentation, but only do this if it's really going to help. Okay. So personally, for me, I can't record myself and watch it back, or I'm going to nitpick every single thing that I find wrong with the video of what I'm doing, what I'm saying, how I pronounce something wrong. And then it spirals into this gigantic anxiety-ridden experience. And then I'm way more nervous about my presentation than I even was before I recorded myself. So I have made myself a personal deal with myself that if I do have to record something like this podcast, for example, I will record it once and I will never look at it again. So if I watched this back before I posted it, I would probably never post it, or I would refilm it like 5 times or something ridiculous, because I would find everything wrong with it and I would never just get over the hump to like get it out there. So I combat that by just saying, hey, it is what it is. I am who I am. I'm leaving it. So you can try recording yourself and watching it. But if you do that once and you realize that it's hurting you versus helping you in terms of giving yourself constructive criticism, then just don't do it. Okay. So that one is kind of like out in the world of maybes for introverts. It's just that one kind of depends on you. Here, though, is a real heavy hitter for introverts. Okay. Before your presentation, make sure that you are by yourself. Do not hang around a bunch of people. Don't go look at the crowd to get a sneak peek to see how many people are going to be watching you give your presentation. No, none of that. Pull yourself away somewhere where you can stay calm and don't interact until you're walking out to give the presentation. All right. This might sound weird, but this one was a game changer for me. I just let everybody know before my talk or my presentation that I need some time to collect my thoughts, and I step away and I come right back right before the talk starts. And it's okay. And guess what? My friends, my coworkers, my colleagues, they all got to know me, and that they just then expected that before. They were like, oh, she just needs a couple of minutes, like, don't bother her, kind of thing. And it's not that I'm going to like freak out to people. It's just that interacting with people as an introvert is already a huge use of energy for me. So I don't want to use up that energy before I go out to do a presentation. I want to conserve everything that I have to be able to give it all to that presentation. And then afterwards, if I have anything left, I can interact. But I don't want to use it up beforehand, if that makes sense. Now, this one kind of relates to the last one. Here's the second game changer for me, maybe for you as well. I want you to think about your presentation, your speech, your talk, whatever it is. Think about it as a performance. Okay. And then think about yourself as having a performance switch that you can turn on and turn off. I mean, literally picture a switch in your brain, and before you're walking out to give your presentation, flip the switch on. When you're coming down or off the stage or room or whatever it is, flip the switch off. All right. When you flip that switch on, you're no longer who you were 30 seconds ago. So if you were nervous, you're like, switch flipped, Did I say that right? Yes, switch flipped. You're no longer nervous because that switch flipped on. Now you can go perform, in quotes, right? Until that presentation's over. And then you flip the switch off and you can come down out of it. I almost think about it like I have an extrovert mask that I can put on for periods of time when that flip is switched on. It allows me to summon up and pull together energy to play the extrovert for a short period of time. But once that switch flips off, the extrovert mask comes off and I go back to being my normal introverted self. And then that's when I know I need some alone time to recharge. Okay. But I can summon up the energy to do the presentation and then I can come back down off of it. I know some of you guys might be thinking, that it's bad to think of this as putting on a mask, but I don't really think it is. And here's why. I think we all have masks and roles that we have to play in our lives. And I actually think that if we're consciously aware that we're putting the mask on and off and that we're switching roles, it's actually ridiculously powerful. And it's a healthy way to approach these things. Because it's unhealthy if you don't know that you're switching roles and that you're utilizing energy in different ways. If you can actually use your energy in the best way for a particular situation, that's amazing, right? That's you having control, awareness, and power over your life and your energy. So whatever that looks like for you, for me, it's that switch and it's that like extrovert mask, because I can't think of a different word or a better word for it. For you, it might be something else, but actually have something visual that you can, switch on and off when you're doing that. So public speaking can be scary, but it really doesn't have to be. You don't have to approach public speaking in anybody's way but your own. Okay. Some of what we talked about today might resonate with you and might help you. And some of it may seem super wacky, off the wall, and might not help you at all. And that's okay, right? I'm here to share what helped me, someone who literally thought I could never speak in front of groups of people, get over all these anxieties that I had in the hopes that maybe it'll help you, right? Now, the first step for me to do that, though, was realizing that I had to do what worked for me and stop taking advice from people who were the opposite of me. So hopefully this might help some of you with some strategies that you can use. Let me know what you think when you try it. Now, if you're not in the Weirdos Like Me Facebook group, go ahead and join so we can continue this conversation. We can talk about more public speaking strategies and share this podcast with a friend, subscribe to help me keep making these podcasts available for you guys. And I am Dr. Shannon. I am signing off for this episode of Weirdos Like Me, and I will see you guys on the next one.